A few days ago, I did a video on Scottie Pippen without Michael Jordan, and in the comment section, it garnered a lot of discussion, whether it be good or bad. But one question that kept coming up was, well, what was Michael Jordan without Scottie Pippen? So I didn't know if that was rhetorical or an actual question, but I'm going to take it as an actual question. So today I'll be doing Michael Jordan without Scottie Pippen. Now, as you know, Mike played 15 seasons in the NBA, give or take. He had a few that he was hurt or he came right back out of retirement. And in those 15 seasons, 5 of them he played without Scottie Pippen. 3 early in his career as a Chicago Bull and 2 as a Washington Wizard. Now, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to start at the end of his journey and talk about his Washington Wizards years. Now, when we think about Wizards Jordan, there seems to be 3 categories of fans. One that completely dismisses those years or overlook them, those that use that as the ultimate ammo against him in the GOAT debate, or those that just see them as 2 years and an absolutely incredible career of one, if not the greatest. Whichever category you fall into, that's fine. But here's Jordan as a Wizard. His stats, really stat that really took a big hit during his days as a Washington Wizard was his scoring, which we had become pretty much knowing Jordan as a scorer. But even then, in 2002, he had that Washington Wizards team on the verge of making the playoffs until he tore, I think, some cartilage in his knee, and he had to be out for a good part of the season. He managed to play 60 games, but uh, he just didn't make it through the entire season. However, something that people might overlook or not realize was that Jordan actually led that Washington Wizards team in points, assists, and steals. Pretty good for a 39-year-old. But if you watch those games and watch Michael Jordan, he was not the same prime Air Jordan we were used to from the Chicago Bulls. And then, of course, 03, 40-year-old Mike, not quite the same guy. He was older, of course, and, you could tell that he probably should have hung it up after 02, but he came out and tried to give us something. Not bad, but he definitely showed his age in 2003. And of course, he retired after that. So, to be fair, for the sake of this argument, Jordan without Pippen as a Washington Wizard didn't make the playoffs twice. Now, there's some caveats, but we're not going to go into that. Plain and simple, he didn't make it. So, that was Washington Wizards, Michael Jordan. Now, let's take a look at the first 3 seasons of Mike from his rookie year to 87. Of course, Pippen came in 88. And it's pretty good stats, to say the least. But this was Michael Jordan not in his prime. He wasn't quite the face of the NBA, not yet during this time. And the Chicago Bulls team he was on was not the fearsome or great teams that we talk about in the all-time greatest teams of all time. So checking this out, Michael Jordan through 84 through 87, nearly 32 points per game, about 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 49.3% field goal, 3 All-Stars. Not bad. A horrible player wouldn't have 3 All-Stars. He was Rookie of the Year, All-NBA first team, became a scoring champion, dunk contest champ. Well, that's neither here or there. Also, a big one is, if you remember that Celtics in 86, that Celtics series, nobody has topped that. Jordan averaged 43.7 points per game in that, nearly 44 points a game in that series, but there's also some variables in that. They got swept. Now, that was a Boston team that was just on a roll, but still got swept. And that's something that, even though these stats and everything look great on this board, but we got to talk about it. This doesn't show that during that time, Jordan in the playoffs was 1-9. Got swept twice, 86 and 87. Now, his averages were great. He averaged nearly 30 points in each series. But the fact of the matter is, they didn't make it far. And as I said, they got swept twice. So, I mean, of course, that was early Michael Jordan, but that was still Jordan without Pippen. He was still, I guess, growing into the star that we would see throughout the late 80s and especially throughout pretty much all the 90s. However, do these accolades look like that of a horrible player, which Scottie Pippen had the nerve to say about this guy this weekend? But it does show that Jordan had to grow into trusting his teammates, and that took some time. That wasn't something that happened overnight. So early in his career, yeah, he was great. He was a scorer. He was flashy. He was an all-star. He was a scoring champ. But when it got to those serious games, those playoff games, he he tried to do everything himself, which in a team sport is pretty much impossible. You might be able to win a game off the strength of your play alone, but if you're going to win a series, especially a series that, well, back then I believe playoff games were the best out of 5, which would make it a 3-game series. If you're going to have a long series, you have to trust your teammates. So that's probably the biggest knock on Mike without Pippen or without Phil or without some structure, is that he wanted to do everything himself and then trust his player. Now, I'm not going to bring up the 84 through 87 Bulls, but if you know anything about them, they weren't exactly the most talented group. And a lot of people talk about how there was a lot of things going on backstage or off the court that hurt that team, um, from a perspective of those guys were maybe not in the right frame of mind on the court, if you know what I mean. So to have done the things Jordan was able to do with what he was able to do it with is pretty impressive, but it was not going to be exceptional basketball until certain players came. So this is definitely not a piece to diminish Scottie Pippen. And to be fair, when you listen to the Scottie without Pippen video, most of Scottie's prime was played with the Chicago Bulls. So the only time he played without Jordan was his post Chicago career. I mean, he came back for one season. He was like 39 and he was pretty much done. But his prime years were played mostly in Chicago. So his later career without Jordan was with teams that might not have been the best fit for him, but he was still a solid player and a contributor to those teams. He just wasn't a man on those teams. But at the end of the day, when you compare Scottie without Pippen and Jordan without Pippen, there's really not a whole lot of comparison, even though they were both phenomenal players when you look at the totality of the game. But when you look at the stats, the accolades, and the impact, Michael Jordan was simply better and simply one of the best, you know? So Scottie is definitely in the conversation for being one of the greats. He's just not in line for the all-time list. But I'm going to leave you with this picture because I thought this was telling. I'm not sure what's going on with Scottie and Mike. I don't know if it's to do with The Last Dance. I don't know if it's, the stuff that's going on with his son dating his ex. But I know relationships change and people change as they get older. But I hate to see two guys that were possibly the greatest duo in basketball just just have a divide so big and so deep. But this is from The Last Dance, and this is what Michael Jordan said and had to say about Scottie Pippen. And when you read that, that to me is the ultimate compliment for a guy that may have been a horrible teammate, but he recognizes what Scottie truly meant to him and his game and his legacy. So we could sit here and debate all day about what Mike was without Scottie and what Scottie was without Jordan. But at the end of the day, they did some great things together. And that's all we should go by. Those Chicago Bulls teams were some of the most fun teams to watch. They were one of the most dominant teams ever in the NBA. And we got to witness a 1-2 punch we may not be able to see again. Of course, we had the Splash Brothers. We've had LeBron and D Wade, LeBron, AD, but nothing quite has compared to Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've got some more coming out this week. I really thank you all for watching, commenting. Please like and subscribe if you'd like, and I'll see you guys really soon.